Hi, I'm Shannon Grissom. Are you looking to ignite your creativity? Or how about be inspired by a steady stream of muses? Welcome to Painterly Life, the podcast that celebrates those who create, inspire, and innovate. So whether you're looking to spark your next big idea, reignite your passion, or simply soak in some creative energy, this is the place for you. Painterly Life, where every guest is a new muse, just for you. Welcome to Painterly Life. I'm your host, Shannon Grissom. Today we have Shoji Nakamoto, and he is a painterly powerhouse. He's a singer-songwriter. He's a painter. He plays multiple instruments. Welcome, Shoji.
Thanks for having me, Shannon.
So what's the weather like in Honolulu?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's probably about low 80s. It's trade winds are blowing. I'm blessed to be here.
Oh, you are. One year, my grandmother sent our family and our cousins. We went to Oahu and Kauai for Christmas.
Oh,
and it was
super.
It was magical. It was really cool.
Oh, great.
So is your entire family musical? I mean, you played so many instruments from ukulele, clarinet, keyboards, guitar. So were you born with an instrument in your hand?
I guess in Hawaii, as kids, just a lot of kids grow up with the ukulele. You can see them, they're walking around with ukuleles in their hands and strumming away, and I was much the same way. But as far as that goes, clarinet really, I spent 2 years in middle school beginning band playing clarinet, so that wasn't much. But really, that's the extent of my formal training, really, because the guitar I just picked up and started playing. Inherited my brother's old cigar box guitar and started playing. My family is very musical, though. My mom's side of the family has a lot of singers, musicians. My brother plays guitar. My other brother plays ukulele. My niece and nephew are musicians at the university level, so they're pretty accomplished too. So I guess you could say we're a musical family.
That's awesome. Did you all jam together when you were younger, or did you each do your own thing?
It's funny, with all the music around us, we all pretty much did our own thing. But when I recorded my first CD, I was really glad that I got to include my niece and nephew. My niece plays oboe and my nephew plays euphonium, and we were able to get them tracked and included in the CD. So I was really happy with that.
Oh man, that's awesome.
It is.
And I think playing together is fun, and when you sing with family, maybe it's just the genetics of the voice, but there's nothing like family harmony. It's a cool thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I wish we did more of it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. My family's scattered, so I'm not playing with them right now, but It's all good. So you started songwriting at a really early age. How did that start?
Really, I was a lyric writer in the beginning. When I was in high school, I did a lot of lyric writing because my prime time for music was the singer-songwriter era. So I was influenced a lot by people like Joni Mitchell, Jackson Brown, James Taylor, Eric Anderson, Dan Fogelberg, people like that. So I was always interested in lyrics. So I started as a lyric writer for a long time in my teen years. But then I hooked up with my good friend Carl Nishio, and we started collaborating with songs. I was primarily the lyric guy, and he was the music guy. And, really, we never went anywhere with any of our compositions, but it was a good learning experience for both of us. And that's kind of how the songwriting thing started.
Well, you paint a beautiful picture with the wishing tree. And let's have a listen.
We carved our names upon your wishing tree, drew a heart around them, promised it would be just you and me. And we lay back in the shade and watched the clouds fly high above. Two children in our innocence in love. As we climbed the twisted branches, fears were lost and knees were skinned. Told each other stories, heard the song of leaves and wind. And the kiss I stole when you weren't looking took you by surprise. Do you recall the promises we made? If a million tears should fall, I'll be there to dry them all. 1,000 dreams untrue, I'll be there to see you through. And if 100 years go by like stars across the sky, here I am, there I'll be, the heart carved upon your wishing tree. Turned to weeks and years, and we made other friends. Little girls turned into women, young boys into men. And the kisses I once stole from you belonged to someone new. But I remembered promises, did you? Day I learned from an old school friend that you had moved away, gone off to chase your dream, he said, somewhere in LA. I wrote a letter, never sent it, kept it by my bed. It was filled with silent promises, it said. If a million tears should fall, I'll be there to dry them all. 1,000 dreams untrue, I'll be there to see you through. And if 100 years go by like stars across the sky, here I am, there I'll be, the heart carved upon your wishing tree. Yesterday they carved their names upon your wishing tree, drew a heart around them, promised love the same as you and me. And they lay back in the shade and watched the clouds fly high above. Two children in their innocence in love. They will climb the twisted branches, fears to lose and knees to skin. Tell each other stories, hear the song of leaves and wind. He will steal a kiss when she's not looking, take her by surprise. Fill her heart with promises and say, if a million tears should fall, I'll be there to dry them all. 1,000 dreams untrue, I'll be there to see you get through. And if 100 years go by like stars across the sky, here I am, there I'll be, the heart carved upon your wishing tree. Carved upon your wishing tree.
It's a beautiful, magical, whimsical song. Can you tell me the history behind it? What's the story? There's got to be a story.
I don't know that there's a real story. A lot of my songs are composites of people, personalities, narratives, stories, experiences. So there's a lot combined into that song. But it does kind of harken back to a very relatable incident for a lot of people. Of course, first love, things like that. The very nice remembrance of it, and of course, in the end, coming full circle with another two people, experiencing the same thing. So it's a relatable thing, but really the origins come from a lot of different places and a lot of different experiences, not just with me, but really anybody who can relate to that.
I get that. I wrote one song, and after I put it out, my stepdaughter called me and said, "Are you and Dad okay?" And I said, "Yeah, we're okay." I said, "I'm making this stuff up." I mean, it comes like you said, it comes from a bunch of different places, and something will happen, and I'll go, "Oh, that's a great song. That's a great idea for a song," and then you run with it. So yeah, I do get that.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing because a lot of times when you can pique somebody's interest or relate to somebody that an experience that they had as well, they will be affected by it. And for a creative person, you really want to be able to, I guess, poke people and pique their interest, and that's really the ultimate for a creative person.
I agree. I've been at an art show before, and people will just sometimes they'll just it's great when they engage. Sometimes they'll just walk past your booth. So the worst thing is to have no interaction. But
yes.
So I agree. When you strike a chord, that's just beautiful. So I speaking of strike a chord. Son of My Father is just a beautiful song, and you talk about having one foot in the east and one in the west, and I would love to share me some insight on the behind that song.
Yeah, that one is actually a specific or my specific family history. Really, there's not a lot in there that's made up. My grandparents came to Hawaii as laborers in the sugarcane fields, and I'm the third generation removed from Japan. So, being third generation removed, you are almost totally removed from your root culture. So, hence, one foot in the east, one in the west. You feel like there's a pull back to a culture that you know very little of, because I've been here for so long, and there's a lot that is involved in this particular song, because not only a family history, but an immigrant ancestry that a lot of people can relate to. You lose part of who you are if you don't reach back to your root culture. And in addition to that, there's also a pull that pulls you back there too. So this one was actually easy to write and yet difficult at the same time. But but yeah, it's a specific family history of mine.
Well, it's just wonderful that you can get in touch with that through your
Yes.
creativity. I mean,
Yes.
I feel like to really go in deep knowing myself or working through anything, it's whatever creative thing I'm doing will take me in there and you do a deep dive. Otherwise, I'm just kind of going through motions and not really there. So I think it's awesome. So, you're definitely in the flow. I love. I think it was your father in the song about dancing in the stream and going with the flow. And so, is that something that was said to you, or was that a reoccurring theme?
I think it's not something that's specifically said. I think, and I don't want to mislead anybody by that, because there's going with the flow doesn't necessarily mean that you just go with everything. It's like life is like a river flow. There's a time to go with it, but also a time to swim to your own path. Mm-hmm. And going with the flow sometimes means that there's a direction in life, and you choose whether you follow that direction or not. And from somebody that's in a creative world, that's often something that you fight with. Do I go the conventional way or not? So it relates to a lot of different things, not just life in general, but for the creative mind, it's a constant thing, really.
So you've been able to be incredibly creative even while holding a day job. So how did you, I mean, you're amazing. How did you balance all of that?
I don't know that I did balance all of it. It's difficult. It's difficult. And my career is totally different from my artistic side. And it required a lot of time. So I was able to do the music side of it because, I would gig occasionally and had my regular dates and things like that. But unfortunately, I had to put aside part of it, and part of it was the painting side of it. When I went to college, my intention was to be a fine arts major, and I started in that curriculum. But the practical side of me somehow made me change, and I became a business student all of a sudden. So there was a lot that was left behind when I started my work life. But fortunately, I'm back. So
You are back. You are back, and you're painting up a storm. So, did that happen after you retire? How did the painting come back? How did that start working its way in?
When I retired, of course, my full intention was, I get to paint again. Wow, that's great, But it wasn't as easy as all that. I tell you, looking at a blank canvas after so many years is really difficult because you lose a lot of the craft of what you do. Everything I learned when I was back in school, and in school, there's a lot of studio time and art labs and things where you can hone your craft. I had to relearn everything. I'm standing there with a paintbrush in my hand, not knowing what to do. I had to learn everything from mixing colors to how to handle a palette knife to composition and perspective and the whole bit. And it was difficult at first. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm working my way through that still. But it's been fun.
Well, what's amazing is that you're doing it. You're not letting the difficult part of it stop you. I see a lot of parallels with me. I started off with my music, then in my 30s started painting, and I'm in my 50s started getting my music back, mm-hmm. and I'm still I've got a lot to learn, and I did feel like I was starting over,
Yes.
and it was frustrating when I played the clarinet too when I was younger, and when I was younger, my fingers just knew where to go. They just went
Right.
there, and
Right.
they just knew what to do. And with the guitar, they do not.
I can
I'm
relate to that.
I'm still learning. So I think it's huge that you're. So how did you push past resistance and the difficult challenges that come with starting a new medium like painting or going back to it?
There are times when you can push through things and keep working and working and working. But for me, there are times when I have to back off. I might be working on a project and going through the phases of a painting and get stuck all of a sudden. It's almost like writer's block, and I've heard that, a solution for writer's block is to just plow through and start writing, writing, writing. But that doesn't work for me. For me, I find it better to back off. I will just put it away. I will not look at a painting. I will not listen to a new piece of music that I'm working on. I would just will put it away. When I come back to it, I'll come back to it with fresh eyes, fresh ears, fresh perspective, and I'll be able to work through better. So for me, and even as I'm working through a project that is actually going well, I will stop every so often, and I will walk across the room and look at it from across the room, and I'll turn it upside down and I'll look at it, just to freshen my eyes again. And that's what works for me. I have to take a time out, and I have to refocus. I have to refresh. So backing off is usually my best solution to blocks and walls and resistance.
It's great that you know yourself and you know what works and you just do it. So do you have uh for me, I have certain times a day that work better for me to do for painting, and another time that is better for me for music.
Hmm.
Do you have is yours that structured, or do you just do it whenever?
I can't say that it's structured. As you probably know, Shannon, I think there are times when things strike you and you
Yes.
have to go after it.
Yeah.
And yet there are times when it's best for you not to pursue it. But you have to kind of know where your pocket is. There's there are times when you know that you can get rolling on something, and yet there are times when it feels forced once you
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
And for me, that doesn't work. So it's a difficulty to know when to do something or when to create something. But I think after a while, you kind of know yourself and where and how to go and when to go.
So if it seems like for your resistance, you tend to just back off and let it come to you when you start again. Am I getting that correctly? When you are stuck, is that your best?
For the most part, like I said, also though, there are times when you can plow through something and work through something, and but you kind of have an instinct
Yes.
that, okay, if I do this, I can get there to the next phase. Especially in painting, because there are times when things aren't working out. Because paintings go in phases, right?
Yeah.
And your initial phase, you think you got it, and then the next phase goes and things aren't going the way you think they're supposed to go, right? So
Yes.
uh, so it's a process. So there are walls that you can fight through, and yet there are times when it gets so frustrating that maybe you should back off. So that's kind of been the way I do things.
Yeah, I find that when I push through it when I should have backed off, I heard it.
Yes, I've had that. Yeah.
So I know better. In fact, I wasn't feeling so good the other day, and I thought, okay, I am not going to touch what I'm working on. I'll just start something different or do something
Right.
different because I will hurt that painting. So,
Yeah, and that's a difficulty because there's a tendency for me sometimes to say, "Oh, okay, I have time to paint," but now I have no creative. I'm not in my creative mode, so it doesn't work.
right.
So scheduling time is difficult. You try to take advantage of something that inspires you, of course, to do something creative. But to match that up with time, and everybody has life that, for
Yes.
lack of a better way to put it, gets in the way of creativity.
Yeah.
But you try to cope as best you can.
Yeah, and I think for me, I need to have some downtime to fill the well. So
Oh
I'll,
yeah. Oh yeah.
taking a walk or pulling some weeds or doing something completely unrelated, visiting with people that that just helps me fill the well. If I get too into it, I can't. It's like you said, you need to get back from your painting, and I need to get back as a whole from all of the creativity, or it's messy. It's a muddy mess.
Yeah, it does get that way. Yeah.
Do you have any new projects? What are you working on now? What's on the horizon for you creatively?
As far as music goes, I have my regular play dates and gigs and whatnot, and I've been fortunate that I'm able to do farmers markets for the Hawaii Farm Bureau, and I do that twice a month. That's always fun because there's a lot of people milling about, and you're just doing your thing, and it's always fun. From the visual arts side, I'd like to work bigger. I think most of my projects recently have been either 12 by 14 canvases or 12 by 16 or whatever they are. So they're relatively small. But I'd like to work a little bigger. I don't know if you can see the one in the back of me, but that's a bigger one. That's a 24 by 36. I think it'll open up a lot creatively because not just the physical space, but now it changes your perspective on composition and balance, and you can work in detail a little better on a larger scale. So I'd like to work a little bit more on larger canvases if I can.
So I can just see you going for it. You've done a lot of beautiful paintings with women, and you have a metaphysical, otherworldly quality. I feel like their spirit is there. It's not just a likeness. Can you tell me about that series? Can you tell me about that series of paintings?
Well, first of all, I like to do different subjects, but of course, I always come back to portraits because I don't know, people just fascinate me. There are different levels and personalities and characteristics and moods, and people just fascinate me. So from that point of view, when you get to start working on something, and I've done portraiture for specific people with specific subjects, and that's a little different for me because you have to pay attention to the detail of the likeness and things like that. But when I'm not doing a specific subject, I have fun with that because I never know how it's going to end up, and it's almost like the subject takes a life of their own as you're progressing through it. You do the first phase and you have a general idea about the composition of it. But once you start putting in the details, the pose, the face, the eyes, they all of a sudden start to control you. They have their own life, and
Yes.
I find that process fascinating because I never know what personality this subject is going to take on when I finish it. And I just love that process.
Do you find that sometimes they change personality mid-painting, that you start off in a certain way and then in the end they're a different person?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot, in fact. And you know how this goes, but when you start something, there's obviously there's a procedure, your background and whatnot, and phases of developing the form and things like that. But once you get into the personality of the subject, you never know where it's going, and I just love that. Love that kind of portraiture, because I'm not trying for a likeness now. I'm trying to find out what this person is, and that's always fascinating.
Well, I think it's interesting that you are listening to the painting and working with the painting rather than imposing your will on it, and it makes for a lot more interesting work.
Yeah, it does. And we were talking about resistance earlier, and that prevents a lot of block and resistance, because when you end up fighting the painting because it's not going where you want it to go, you find that block happening, and it's a lot easier, to go with the flow, kind of thing, and it's also a lot more enjoyable to watch the process unfold that way.
Yeah, the painting always wins, so it's just
Yes.
it's a matter of whether you're gonna allow it to do that.
Yeah, and that's a good way of putting it, allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, any final thoughts on creativity that you'd like to share?
I think for me, I think as long as I maintain my sense of curiosity, I will always find some kind of spark to create with. Because, I've always felt that curiosity is a spark, and a spark is only a spark because you have to process it in your creative mind and your heart, and then evolve it into something you can materialize into art. And of course, the materializing of it also requires you to have a competence in your craft. So it's a real process, but for me, it all starts with a sense of curiosity. And if I ever lose my sense of curiosity, I'll be a sorry creative person. but that's what works for me, and curiosity is the key for me.
Well, somehow I don't think you'll ever lose that, Shoji. Well, thank you for being here. You've totally been inspiring.
Oh, thank you for having me, Shannon. This was fun.
It is fun. Well, thank you for tuning in to Painterly Life. Please visit our website, like, subscribe, and share. For more information on Shoji, please visit dshojinakamoto.com. And until we see you next time, I wish you all inspired action. That's a wrap.